we have two interesting threads, or more like one Reddit thread, basically Ask Me Anything from Oroboro. We also have a YouTube video. The video is only 1 minute and 20 seconds long.
Here, and today I'm going to explain the new scaling mechanic in the DLC.
Okay.
When you sit at the first site of Grace, you'll notice a new option called Shadow Realm Blessing. To upgrade your blessing level, you'll need fragments. What this means is that the more fragments you collect and burn at the site of Grace, the more powerful your character will become inside of the Shadow Realm. The higher the upgrade, the more fragments required.
Okay, so this is basically Golden Seed, yeah? It's kind of similar to how Golden Seed is being used. And from that what we know from other video, I think it was YOUWY'S video, percentage damage boost that you receive is 5%. And you also receive a damage negation from 3% to 8%.
There's another blessing called Revered Spirit Ash Blessing that bolsters both Summon Spirits and Spectral Steed's ability.
Oh, that's something that I never heard of.
Deal and negate damage as well.
So that was the video, that was quick, and now Ask Me Anything. Let's see, maybe we are going to have anything interesting here. Can the perfume weapons be infused? I believe they can be infused, yes. I cannot really imagine what the fuck, how that's supposed to work like. Alright, so the perfume bottles, like, they have moveset like this. And you also have this type of attacks. This is a charge attack and also running. If you can infuse them like Oro is saying here, that means it's gonna be so weird. It's gonna be insanely easy to apply bleed, for an example, with something that's essentially spreading freaking fire. It's gonna look weird, it's gonna feel weird. What is the Great Katana moveset, and are there any dex intelligence weapons? Lots of big forward thrusts and overhead chops. Oh, look, that's actually interesting information. So I said in my video that I found information that someone's saying that's basically CGS. It's kind of different to what we have, for example, in Dark Souls 2, because we technically have a big katana in Dark Souls 2 as well. Let me actually jump in real quick. Every occasion to turn on Dark Souls 2 is the good one. Jump attacks are overhead chops? Maybe, but I probably imagine that jumping R1 is going to be jumping thrust attack, and the other one, the jumping R2, gonna be overhead chop. Alright, here we have the katana, yeah? And as you can see in this game, it's like basically a horizontal swings rather than anything else. The running attack is like this. The roll attack is overhead chop. The R2 is also kind of like overhead chop. So yeah, I'm actually quite curious how it's going to be like in case of Elden Ring, because apparently it's gonna be quite different to the katana that we have here. Also, like, I am so disappointed that this katana has a bleed scaling, because it makes it actually kinda bad in Dark Souls 2, but yeah, that's on the side note. Alright, let's jump off. Actually, if you have ever played Monster Hunter, I've heard it's similar to the longsword. No dex intelligence weapons yet. Okay, but that Monster Hunter, wait, let's actually look it up. Well, I somehow don't think that we're gonna have this type of movesets. But like, I kinda get the idea that Oro wants to share, I can imagine, yeah? Besides the new weapon types, what kind of new weapons for old type did you find? I have a weapon called the Patati, claws that were as long as straight swords, very... What? Okay, wait a second. If they are going to have the moveset of Raptor Talons, then GG. DLC power creep? Actually, yes. The new weapons and armor you found, were they any fun or goofy ones like the ringed finger or a jar head? He found a great jar helmet, it was comically large. Also know anything about this rumored dragon transformation? The answer is, I saw it with my own eyes. I got invaded by ancient dragon man. He looked more like the Dark Souls 2 transformation than anything! Confirmation that Elden Ring is indeed Dark Souls 2 fucking 2. But I am not sure if it's just an armor set or an actual transformation time will tell. I know it's impossible to tell without playing it, but which of the new weapons or spells like is hugely issue to balance? Nothing seems too fast, but all of them seem viable. If I had to pick one, I would say Beast Claws might be the closest thing to be overpowered. Interesting. The Ashes of War for some of these weapons are the whole different story though, but I am really excited to try them out in PvP. I heard there is a teleport for mages. Yeah, it's a new spell called Miram's Vanishing. It has super underwhelming and unfortunately had really low range, but it had iframes at least. Bruh, you got fucking new BHS for mages. Someone asked about PvP and Oro says that unfortunately nothing on PvP, so I'm not expecting any big changes. Honestly, that was only expected. Bamco doesn't seem like they are involving PvP into the promotional materials like at all, and the only thing that we have usually is just a network test where you have some focus on PvP and that's it. My major balance concern for PvP is a weapon called the Death Knight's Twin Axes. Its skill allows you to lightning teleport and spinning dash at enemies. It scares. Okay, so that's what Oro meant earlier when he said that we essentially get the freaking like scary Ashes of War. And honestly, I think this is the one that YOUWY was mentioning somewhere here. Let me see. Okay, it was here. Let's listen to YOUWY.
A gravity-based Ash of War that can be equipped onto like these poking attack type weapons. I forget the actual name of it, but it does this cool gravity tornado attack. Best way to describe it, it's kind of similar to like Dragon King's Cragblade, but instead of turning into a cloud, you turn into like this cool gravity tornado. You don't really go as far as Dragon King's Cragblade, nor have as good a tracking, but it does do it in a larger AoE. It does stagger enemies really nicely, and it does some pretty good damage.
Yeah, like the first time I heard it, I said that it might be pretty good in PvP. Well, we are going to have to see, but, well, Oro is scared. That's what we know for sure. Describe the Great Katana, please. And he says that it is as slow as curved greatsword. If that's true, then I think we are talking here about 17 frames. Let me see. So yeah, like it is essentially like 17 frame startup. Now, so it's gonna be essentially a curved greatsword with the thrusting attacks. So you probably can expect to have like more ranged version of CGS in form of the Great Katanas. Question is if the Great Katanas have hyper armor, because it's going to determine the way how these weapons going to be played. It probably would be more healthy for the game if they wouldn't. Also, like we don't know if hyper armor is not going to be adjusted in the DLC, honestly. Anything new? Anything more? No. So we covered this thread and the most important things from it. And the next thing I want to look at is YOUWY'S new video. So yeah, let's look at it and see what's interesting we have there. Let's go to the main criticism. That's actually something that I am interested in.
But overall, I think both boss fights are very cool and cinematic, but just like most other Elden Ring bosses, they're going to take a while to master. Which this kind of leads me to my biggest criticism of the DLC. Everything is going to require effort and a lot of it. I wanted to play with all the fun stuff, but so many enemies and bosses hit really hard, have lots of poise, give you small open.
Did I hear it right, dude? Being like, the game kind of too hard, you know? You know, that game, like the game series essentially. Games genre that is focused around being hard. And YOUWY here says that, God fucking damn, they kind of have to keep your focus on and be prepared on stuff because things hard. And I don't like it. Holy shit.
So just experimenting wasn't really something you could just do. Kind of had to resort to using these really powerful stuff, which is not a problem, but if you're going to design a DLC that has all these really cool things to test and play with, it would have been nice to throw some cannon fodder in there. Just a bunch of like test dummies to really like try and figure out what I like or not, at least for like the first part of it. Now
I mean, having some sort of the boss rush game mode would be pretty cool, like you have in Sekiro. That being said, you kind of can just jump off the DLC and play through the game and test it there.
I know I'm a person that does level 1 runs and no hit runs, and I'm complaining about difficulty, but I would like to use the fun and mediocre weapons and not hate myself while I'm like trying to learn these bosses' movesets. At least not for every single boss. FromSoft has made plenty of good bosses with easy to read and easy to counter movesets, so I do hope there's at least a couple of them in here. Now, being that the DLC is hard, what level do I recommend? I am going to say 150, which that is the level of the characters we had prepared for us. But honestly, go as high as you want. There isn't going to be such a thing as too high. The new leveling system of which I talked about yesterday is going to make it to where level doesn't really matter much. And also, there's going to be lots of spells and weapons with really high requirements. So if you did want to play with all of this stuff, I would just recommend being at a higher level. Just whatever you do, please have 60 vigor. Like these guys really hurts. They really do. The DLC is going to
Well, look at that. Someone is bringing good information. Actually, kind of side note, but there was entire drama on Twitter about 60 vigor. Let me actually jump off this video for a second to show you that. Considering dedicating the first hour of each Elden Ring stream up until DLC, which I normally just chat in anyway, to fixing vigorless viewer builds, they intend to bring into DLC. Build optimization is a very important skill set in these games that is largely ignored. And then someone actually was arguing with Piv here that actually vigor is not that important. And it was pretty funny because they apparently had entire discussion that was going on there and on and on and on and showing some sort of like a proofs and what's not. And that's so funny because like Elden Ring and overall Souls games are these type of games that you can play them in so many different ways, and certain people from the backgrounds, like for example PvP, just cannot imagine others having like different type of approach and vice versa. So you have like a Piv who is PvP guy and he cannot imagine being so stupid to not run 60 vigor, and then you have other guy that is purely challenge runs and PvE focused that cannot imagine being so clueless about the game, so they waste so many points onto vigor when they could increase their damage. Because like one stance is of someone that always runs 60 vigor, and the other one understands is of someone that is playing PvE challenge runs like level 1 run, for an example, and they are always lowering their amount of HP to be in the like below 20% range for the sake of to boost their damage with the red branch talismans, for example, yeah? And then we also have Saint Riot that was actually trolling. Are you tired of toxic Elden Ring streamers gaslighting you into having hit points and gatekeeping build making behind vigor? Ignore them, you can do damage if you spend all your levels on health. I do agree. GG. Okay, back to the video.
To be just as unbalanced as the base game. There will be lots of ways to be OP, but also lots of enemies that act like it don't matter. Now I know I'm going to get lots of questions asking about how big it all is. It's very big. Now obviously I only got to play the first few hours, but I did look over some cliffs and I see lots of grass down there. It's probably going to be an easy 20 to 30.
Man, I am such a sucker for forests and overall locations of this type. I love them so much in the open world RPGs. I'm so happy to see this type of location. Grass. Cannot touch it IRL, so at least I can touch it in video game.
30-hour experience. For the average player, there is an area after Rolana that I did take step into. I was told I was not allowed to go that way, but it definitely seemed like it was progression. And the area past the lion kind of leads to a dead end because there's a very big locked door, but you'll probably come back to that location later on for potentially the final DLC boss, because if you look up, it does look pretty badass. It looks like there's going to be a boss there. Now, as for my single biggest regret, you basically see all of these NPCs very early on. You see this girl literally right at the beginning, standing next to Mikula's egg. I should have killed her to see what she dropped, and I didn't. I forgot. I'm sorry. All I know is that first things first, when the DLC drops, I'm killing her. I have lots of characters to spare. I'll sacrifice one of them just so I can find out. By the way, she actually is wearing her helmet. You don't actually see her face when she's actually just standing there next to the egg. And also, this NPC is also a female. Anyway, that's everything.
Chadet is one of the names of all time. Not gonna lie. So YOUWY actually finished his thoughts over here. Like, not much, honestly, that interesting of stuff for us. For me, for example, person that is more focused on the PvP and just would want to run through the PvE for the sake of to start testing armors, weapons, and so on. Well, DLC soon, we're gonna find out. So far, the information that we have actually received makes everything somewhat interesting, even if there would be literally no changes to the PvP whatsoever. The PvE changes that are also somewhat affecting PvP are going to be amazing, like all these new weapons, for example, in the DLC. I also cannot wait to invade in new locations to see how it's going to feel like. Anyway, we covered everything. GG.